All right. Welcome everyone. As I usually do, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from across the world. This is the final edition of FPNN, that's Family Planning News Network. I'm Victoria Rubadiri, broadcast journalist from Nairobi, Kenya, and we are coming to you live from Pattaya, Thailand.
Very exciting. It's the very last day. It has been quite an intrinsic moment, an experience at the global stage. I'm Andrew Jamagiro from Uganda, extremely passionate about the boy and the male engagement. This conversation went all the way from East Africa and it went down south and Tandla. Tell us, how does it feel to come to the very last day?
It's exciting. There's been so many conversations. We have had so many communities, so many people sharing the work they're doing, some very uncomfortable conversations that we don't usually have. And I had so much fun. And I hope you have too.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned uncomfortable conversations on a live stage in front of a global audience, but that's what we do here at FPNN, to create that safe space and to have those critical conversations. You know, Andrew, this is my first ICFP.
How does it feel like?
Oh my goodness. You know, I was made aware of some very critical numbers, right? That half of pregnancies are unintended.
That's true.
Right?
We're just having fun.
Most of those are girls who've had kids under 20 years of age, right? And I was thinking those numbers now brought us here. 4 years after we couldn't see each other thanks to COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And we were so excited to connect, right? And to bring together some brilliant minds,
that's true,
diverse voices when it comes to how to take the agenda forward when it comes to family planning, not just in your respective countries, but across the world. Exactly.
That means a lot. And for me, the sharing of those findings and where the community still find a common place to kind of interact. It is what stood out for me so much about the examples of contraception, the cohesion, and given that I'm so passionate about the male and the boy child, I got to know about the contraceptive of the cream that is being researched, where the men this time around were taking the shot. And this early morning, we've just witnessed a vasectomy session going on, and I had a conversation with the patient, with the doctor, and how this feels. It's exciting to have the men at the core of the participation of the family planning. So to those that have been part of the conversation from when we started to where we are today, the issue of collaboration means a lot. But Tandla, you had a conversation about the commitments. You're listening from the global leaders to the institutions, and then it came down to the individuals.
Right.
What did you make of the commitments, Tandla?
There were many commitments. The first conversation I had was with UNFPA representatives. DNA was very clear that we have 8 billion people in the world right now, and we should be excited. It's great that we are all here. So the main thing is, how do we move forward together as 8 billion people? How do we create an inclusive world that is conducive for everybody to excel and grow in? And there were a lot of young people doing great work. So they are also talking about the work that they're doing. Commitments they're asking from leaders, donors. I think there was something that came up which said about the Global South that donors and beneficiaries should work together as partners. We should change from, donors to beneficiaries to now working together, because the goal is the same for all of us. So partnership, let's work together. Let's invest in women's empowerment, education. So there was a lot of things that came up. And I'm looking forward to what we're going to do, what we're committing to going forward.
No, certainly. And what you're talking about is that shift of power, right? So from the central kind of space of donors who hold the money, who are the decision makers, to now the beneficiaries, people who can now make decisions from the ground up. So taking it to the grassroots to ensure that they actually make that decision on where the money goes and how it impacts their lives.
These conversations could only make sense if you make sense of what transpired yesterday. Let's pay attention to the screen and we see what exactly went down yesterday as we come to the very final day, which is today. And thereafter, we'll return and we'll tell you what stood out more for the three of us. We'll be back in a bit.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third day of the ICFP conference. Today, we spoke about a very important topic about power shifting and how power shifting can help us with regards to human rights programs. And today we had women of impact who led discussions on stage around how we look at family planning and the advancements of gender equality.
Educate yourselves, tell your story, don't be afraid to speak up.
Organizations such as the Success Projects took us through how we can learn from failures to advance our family planning programming and services. And we cannot forget about the moth, where incredible stories teach us about the power of choice and how it can make a difference in family planning. Thank you, and don't forget to follow the conversation using hashtag ICFP 2022, hashtag FP for all, and hashtag FPNN. See you soon.
Yay!
Wow, 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 wow. Amazing, amazing. This is now day 4, final day, and of course we'll be having the closing ceremony. But, you know, a couple of things stuck out to me, Andrew and Tanda. In terms of commitments, so we can talk all we want on this stage in the different forums, but the biggest thing is, where are you putting your money?
That's it.
Is it where your mouth is?
Yeah.
And so I'm talking about the FP 2030 commitments that were made. And we had at least 63 NGOs, 23 governments, 4 donors make specific commitments to family planning over the next couple of years until 2030, that is. And yeah, of course, FP 2030 is a global partnership that will try to keep them accountable on many of those commitments that they made, whether in money or in efforts, in policy, and different avenues they'll try to use to ensure that the family planning agenda is kept top of mind.
Well, for me, the thing is, given that we are from the media, save for Tandla, who is actually on a sabbatical there, we are going to keep the leaders to the accountability models.
Yeah.
Whatever commitment you made, countries like Madagascar, we had countries like Nigeria, we had Ethiopia, we had Chad, and those that read like our countries, they committed, you and I. They read a statement and they're committing soon after this conference. We're going to amplify this conversation that they account. And to the donors and the investors in the family planning investment, please look out for the investment calculator. It makes it easier for you to know how much money you're investing and what is the return on investment and the impact that is actually going to trickle down to the very last mile of this. So for me, that is something super good. But before we actually go around this, I want to know from the two of you, Tandla and Victoria here, what are your commitments when we go from here? What comes next? What are your commitments? The world is watching.
Wow, pressure is on. So, Tanda, you want to go first?
I can try.
Please.
For me, the most important thing, which is what we're doing here, is to keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.
It does not end here. It's just beginning.
Yeah.
So we need to keep having these uncomfortable conversations. The commitments are on TV, they're on screen.
Yeah.
We have them on record. We need to keep it going. We are accountable. We've listened to these people. So I think it's also on us to keep reminding them, but you said on this day, but you said we're going to invest in this.
Yeah.
So for us as media practitioner on our end,
Yeah.
we have to keep the people accountable and keep the conversation going.
So let me use a famous line that we use in the media. This is coming on record. And for me as a journalist, I'm committing to telling more stories around family planning, not just in Kenya, but across the region. Also using my social media platforms to continue those critical conversations, to get it to the policymakers, to get it to governments and decision makers. But beyond that, to amplify the voices of people who work in the grassroots, the youth, the civil society groups who need to get their needs out there. So that in part is what we do. And, you know, like you said, Ntanda, we're keeping ourselves accountable through these mediums. So we can go back to this tape and see whether we delivered on some of those commitments that we made today. What's the date? It is the 17th of November, 2022. So we'll come back to that.
Well, for me, I'll still commit to the men and the boys. These conversations are going to go from here to Timbuktu and back to Asia to Laos and to Europe. In every conversation where a boy and a man needs to be a part of the conversation to expedite and accelerate the conversation in collaboration with the girl child and the women. I'm going to be at the core of that. But not only that, to still challenge the programming of family planning to include the man and the boy's participation about this. So we're going to accelerate this. My conversations are not going to change so soon. It's still committed to the men and to the boys to be a part of the ecosystem. Once we have that accelerated, oh Lord, then I can be in position to say that, well, we did a great job, but it's just the beginning of FPNN.
Yeah.
I want to urge all the men and the boys watching this across the globe, be a part of the conversation. It's just the beginning, like Ntandla said. Write a blog, vlog, what else? Go on YouTube, whatever you write, as long as it's about accelerating and collaborating and the innovation about family planning, just do the hashtag FPNN. We'll pick it up, we'll run with it, and we'll publish your story and we'll amplify it at the different global scales we have.
Absolutely. And you know what? That speaks to the fact that FPNN is not just a platform that exists when ICFP is on. This is a movement. And as Andrew said,
Sema.
using social media, Sema means say it in Swahili, using social media as that accelerator, right? To keep those conversations going, to connect so we can hear from you and we can use those stories to keep pushing for that agenda. And of course, this keeps in with the theme of the global roadmap for action that we've been hearing about across the day today. And that has to do with the youth. It's no coincidence that day 4 of ICFP has focused on the youth agenda.
That's true.
They're not just the future. They are the present. They're the ones who are carrying those conversations forward. And there are a few things that they were calling for. And I want to kind of reiterate from the conversations they had this morning. One, in terms of the priority areas, is acknowledgement of all youth identities. To have them have meaningful engagement and partnerships. So don't just have them on the table as a token. Don't just have them on the table to meet a quota. Make sure that their voices are heard. Number 3, have the youth lead conversations and make critical decisions on what affects them. The other one is data, monitoring, and reporting that truly reflects their needs. And the last, probably the biggest, financing, money. All right, so they need that support, and that's some of the critical areas that they need. Yeah.
And when we get to financing, I think we need to emphasize to the governments that we're here and those following this conversation, let's make sure that we go to financing. Let's be a part of the conversation as governments. But again, if you're giving the youth the money, please do the best you can to give them the capacity. We need capacity building in terms of training to understand all these. And when it gets to what we call the VICA trainings, for the media, we need so much VICA trainings that need to cut across all divides to make sure that we amplify those conversations. So Ntandla, from us here, we're super excited to be a part of this movement. And it just began. The next time we're going to meet, it's not going to be in the next FPNN. We are going to amplify these conversations. And the next time you and I get to meet together, it could be in Nairobi, it could be in Kampala, it could be in Lilongwe. The conversations keeps going on. So for me, Andrew Chamagiro here from Uganda.
And Victoria Rubadiri from Nairobi, Kenya.
We throw it up to Malawi, where we have Atanda to take it out.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Andrew. You guys have been super amazing, bringing the news to us, keeping us going and telling us what is going on here at ICFP. Now, it's been amazing being your host, having all the people here, all the conversations we have had. Let's keep the conversation going forward. I'm just going to rehash some things that were really important that came out. First of all, we cannot have family planning without speaking about women's empowerment. Let's center gender. Let's center empowering women. I was watching a video by Melinda Gates, and she was speaking to ICFP, and she said women should be a part of the conversation at the boardroom table and also on the kitchen table. Women should always be a part of the conversation. We should invest a lot in education. I think there was a talk around if we invest in women and education, you get back returns on that. And on SRHR as well, for every dollar you invest in SRHR, you get back $4. There is a return on the investment. So let's continue to invest. And speaking of investments, We need to shift the power to the people working at the grassroots, the people doing this work, the people benefiting from this. We need to be intentional about that. And let's continue having the uncomfortable conversations. We had so many here. I mean, there was talks about orgasms, sex, masturbation, STIs, so many things that we don't get to talk about in our day-to-day lives, but they need to be because they are a part of our life. And lastly, as we continue to program forward, we need to be intentional about leaving no one behind. Let's be inclusive. Let's include women, boys, as you said. Young men have to be a part of the conversation. Everybody should be there. Young people, old people, women, all people of age groups, so that we all move forward together and we leave no one behind. Thank you so much. My name is Ntando Mandui, and it's been amazing being your community host.
Thank you so much.